And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Tuesday, May 21st. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So I hope everybody's doing well. I know it's been a little bit since we last spoke, but I am back, and I hope you guys didn't miss me too much. So let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. I'll continue my rankings of each team in each division. Today we will be doing the AFC South, and I just realized that I have the NFC South labeled on the show segment. So, because we already did the NFC South, so good catch by me there. So that will be the start of the show. Then in the second part of the show, I'll talk about T. Higgins and give you some updates on that. He still hasn't signed the franchise tag, so we'll get into that as well. Then we'll also talk about some comments made by Jordan Poyer, the former safety for the Buffalo Bills, now with the Miami Dolphins, talking about Josh Allen. So I wanted to get into that. Then we will talk about a couple of quarterbacks that are looking for new deals in Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa, so we'll get into that as well. And then we will talk about the Giants' defensive line. With their acquisition of Brian Burns and pairing him up with Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence, the Giants got something on the defensive line, and there might not be a lot of things that Giant fans are excited about when it comes to this team and how this team is going to perform in 2024, but I think when you look at the defense, that could be something to at least look forward to for this upcoming season, because there's some other issues that they still have to address, and it's probably not going to be addressed this year, but again, focus on the defense and hope that they do well at least. But yeah, that's the rundown for the show today. Like I said, hope everybody's doing well, and already we're off to a great start having the NFC South labeled instead of the AFC South. So with that, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the AFC South. And yeah, this is a division that was kind of a laughingstock in years past. And last year, it seemed like it was going to be the Jags that were just going to run away with this division. But that ended up not happening because the Jags ended up collapsing, and the Texans ended up winning the division themselves, going to the playoffs, winning a playoff game. And now, going into this year, the Texans are the favorites. And let's get into it now. So I do have a graphic, and like I've been doing recently. So there you go. You got the four teams there. You got the Titans, the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Texans. So we'll start at the bottom. And I don't think there's necessarily a bad team in this division, but I think that, of course, we have to rank someone last. Now, I don't necessarily think that every team has a shot at the playoffs, but these teams have made improvements, and then you also have teams like the Jags that are looking to bounce back and try to forget about their late season collapse, and the Texans just got better. So, I expect them to, like I said, be the favorites to win this division. But at number 4, I do have the Tennessee Titans. And they have made a lot of moves this offseason. They drafted a tackle to try to build this offensive line and protect their young quarterback. They went out and they signed Calvin Ridley to a big contract. They also signed Tyler Boyd recently to go along with DeAndre Hopkins. And then when it comes to the running back position, they did lose Derrick Henry, but you bring in Tony Pollard, who's looking to have a better 2024. and be another year removed from his injury that he suffered in the playoffs a couple years ago. And then on top of that, you also traded for L'Jarius Sneed from the Kansas City Chiefs to help out that secondary on the defensive side. So I think it's really all, and you got a new head coach coming over from the Bengals and Brian Callahan. So, I think that the Titans, they can be a better team. It's really all going to come down to how Will Levis performs. And I think that they put Will Levis in a good situation. It's really going to be up to him and his growth. And I feel like, again, I think this division is going to be tough, but I feel like I think they could at least be competitive. And Will Levis had a great debut, but other than that, it was kind of a hit or miss with him. So, and he's got a strong arm, and he's got weapons now. Now, if this was his receiving core a few years ago, you'd be like, wow, this could be the best receiving core in the NFL. But, DeAndre Hopkins is getting older. Calvin Ridley's getting older. Tyler Boyd I think he's just turning 30. So, yeah, the receiving core is on the older side, but I still think these guys can produce. But I don't know. For me, I like the other three teams. So right now I got the Titans ranked as the number 4 team. 3, I got the Colts. And it was, for me, it's kind of a toss-up between them and the Jags. Because, the Colts and the Jags, they just missed out on the playoffs last year. I mean, the Jags, they looked like they were going to be a lock to make the playoffs, but then they collapsed. The Colts were kind of hanging around and trying to make that late season push, and they just missed out on the playoffs. And it was against the Texans. They lost a really tough game, and that was with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, and now he's no longer there. Now you got Anthony Richardson for a full season. And in his limited time, Anthony Richardson looks like he's going to be a good player for this team. But we got to see it. It's still kind of unknown, but I think they have their guy moving forward. If he can continue what he was doing before he got hurt, and on top of that, you're getting Jonathan Taylor for the full season. He's not going to be missing the first few games again. This team's going to be good. And you signed Michael Pittman. You locked him up long term. You got some young receivers as well. You drafted one this year, to go along with the other guys that you have. The defense is still, pretty good. I think that this team, if Anthony Richardson's healthy, they're going to be a competitive team as well. So, but right now it's kind of a toss up between them and the Jags. But right now I'm still going to rank them 3, and I have the Jags at 2. So we'll go now to the Jags, and they're looking to turn the page on last season. I know we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence a little later in the show, but Trevor Lawrence got banged up towards the end of the year, and that was part of the problem as to why they collapsed. I mean, I guess it really all started when they lost to the Bengals with Jake Browning playing quarterback. Trevor Lawrence got hurt in that game. That was a game that the Jags should have won. They ended up losing. And that kind of, I think that was the game that kind of started their collapse. I mean, I have to go back and look, but when they beat the Texans in Houston, I thought, okay, the division's over. But that was not the case. They did lose Calvin Ridley, but they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. You still got Evan Ingram there. You still got Christian Kirk. They also signed Gabe Davis as well. You're looking for another big year out of Travis Etienne. You added Eric Armstead to that defensive line to go along with Walker and Josh Allen. We'll be talking about Josh Allen, but the quarterback, Josh Allen. So I feel like the Jags will bounce back. But if they don't, well, then there's going to be changes. Doug Peterson is probably going to lose his job, and the general manager is probably going to lose his job. So this is a big year for the Jags. But I'm going to have them at 2. And then at 1, it's the Houston Texans, a team that I like a lot. Love what they've done this offseason. Last year, not many people expected them to do much, but they exceeded expectations. They won the division, they won a playoff game, and they're looking to take another step forward in 2024. Now you add Stephon Diggs to that receiving core with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. You brought back Dalton Schultz. You got Joe Mixon. Again, Joe Mixon, is not what he was a few years ago, but I think this is a good situation for him. And then you got the defense. They went out and they got Danielle Hunter and Anthony Van Ginkel in free agency. They lost Jonathan Grenard, who went to the Vikings. So the Texans were like, all right, well, we'll take your pass rusher then, and Danielle Hunter, go along with Will Anderson Jr. They're really building something over there in Houston, and I think that that's going to continue. And I have them at number 1. I think they are going to win this division, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see how they stack up against the Ravens again, and we'll see when they play the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills and these other teams. I mean, we saw how they played against Joe Burrow. They beat the Bengals in Cincinnati, so now let's see how they match up against some of these other teams as well. So, yeah, just to reiterate, Titans, I got at 4, Colts at 3, Jags at 2, Texans at 1. But, again, I think this is another division that can be competitive. And I think that, for the Titans, if Will Levis can take a big step forward in year 2, the Titans could be a problem. And then if Anthony Richardson stays healthy, and you got Jonathan Taylor back there for a full year now, they're going to be in the mix. The Jags, they've been a playoff team before, and it looked like they were going to make the playoffs very easily, but that didn't happen. They're looking to bounce back. And then you got the Texans, who only got better. So looking forward to the matchups between these teams and these young quarterbacks. But let me know what you guys think about the AFC South. How would you rank these teams? So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss the latest on T. Higgins, the drama surrounding him, and that's what we will do when we come back from our second break of the first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.